Today's episode of Mental Health is Horrifying. I'm your horror Barbie host of Darkness, Candace Green, psychotherapist and all-around spooky bitch, podcasting from my bat-filled cave in Toronto, Canada. How's your summer going? Mine's going pretty good, and I've been able to travel, which has been nice. But I feel like something is missing. I'd really love to visit a pagan commune, dance around the maypole, and sacrifice some American tourists. Wait, what? Well, as I'll share in this episode, I'm kind of afraid of these types of group gatherings. As today's episode on 2019 art horror classic Midsommar asks, what happens when being in a group that promised to help heal and support you winds up traumatizing you further? Okay, so let's get right into it. Let's check out Midsommar and explore its portrayal of intersubjectivity, group dynamics, and why I'm afraid of women's circles.
I told you that I want to go to that festival in Sweden.
No, you said it would be cool to go.
Yeah, and then I got the opportunity and I decided to do it.
I don't mind you going. I just wish you would have told me, that's all.
Dude, she needs a therapist. You've been wanting out of this stupid relationship for like a year now.
And don't forget about all of the beautiful Swedish women you'll meet in June.
Okay, guys.
That's not her again. Seriously?
Babe, what's happening? Danny.
I was so very sorry to hear about what happened.
I'm sorry.
I invited Danny to come to Sweden. You know what she's been going through.
Christian says you've got this special week planned.
It's sort of a crazy festival. Special ceremonies and dressing up.
That sounds fun.
Unbelievable.
Welcome and happy midsummer. Skål!
What time is it?
9 p.m.
That can't be right. The sky is blue.
This is what 9 p.m. is like here.
How long have you two been together?
Just over 3.5 years.
4 years.
Really?
Yeah?
What do you think?
It's like another world.
Tomorrow's a big day.
Is it scary?
What is it?
It has special properties.
What am I going through?
We just need to acclimate.
I don't want to acclimate, I want to go.
Absolutely not.
What's happening? I don't know why you invited us.
That's why you look so guilty right now, because you know.
We only do this every 90 years. I was most excited for you to come.
Not a single moment is wasted, as we are immediately plunged into trauma-rama as Danny learns that her entire family is dead because her sister killed herself and their parents in a horrific murder-suicide. This strains Danny's relationship with her, emotionally misattuned boyfriend Christian. Not knowing who else to go to for emotional support, Danny decides to join Christian and his friends on their summer trip to the Haraga commune in the rural Hälsingland region of Sweden. They were invited by Pelle. He grew up there, and he is excited for his friends to join him on the commune for their midsummer festival, which only occurs once every 90 years, so it's super special. Understandably very emotionally fragile since losing her family, Danny does her best to participate in the midsummer festival and understand the commune's customs. But it's hard to understand, because they do weird stuff, like throw themselves off of cliffs when they reach the ripe age of 72, and there's a lot of drugs, and these people do everything together, and I mean everything. They sleep together, they eat together, they have cult sex together, they feel together, and they sacrifice outsiders together. These people have no boundaries. As Danny and Christian's friends they came with slowly start to disappear / be sacrificed by the commune one by one, Danny continues to feel adrift in her grief, which Christian is increasingly unable to tend to. Recognizing this, Pele suggests that Danny allow herself to feel held and supported by the Harga commune. When his parents died, leaving him orphaned as a child, he too turned to the commune and they became his true family. So Danny's like, okay, fine, and participates in activities like taking hallucinogenic drugs, group screaming, and even winning a ritual dance competition. Since Danny won the dance contest and became the May Queen, she now has the auspicious honor of choosing who will be the final human sacrifice, making up a total of 9 that the commune must offer in order to purge itself of evil. She's like, who will I choose? And she lands on Christian, her boyfriend, who she saw impregnating a Harga member in a group sex ritual. Christian and the 9 other sacrifices are placed in a wooden temple and set aflame. As the temple and its human sacrifices burn, the commune mimics the screams from inside. Remember, they do everything together. Danny sobs, but as the temple collapses, she smiles. I think one thing that's really scary about Midsommar is the fact that it's almost always daylight. In most horror movies, there's a lot of darkness, and in a way it feels like a bit of a relief. You can hide or get the relief of that sensory shutdown, but in Midsommar, it's this feeling that all of the horror is literally happening in broad daylight. There's literally no shade anywhere on this commune, and you can't look away from what's happening. So I think that's a really interesting element that Ari Aster brought into this movie. Not to mention that, can somebody please get these Swedish people some sun hats? They're all just out there raw dogging it in the sun, blasting directly into their faces throughout the entire movie. But I guess they don't care too much about skin damage because they're all going to die when they're 72. Anyways, Midsommar is a folk horror, yes, but it has also fallen into this new subgenre of horror that I'm all for, called Good for Her. These are movies where women seek revenge against those that have wronged them and go to devious, murderous, and gory lengths to get their revenge. Think Carrie, Jennifer's Body, The Witch, and now Midsommar. Midsommar is directed by Ari Aster, who has really become known for leading the charge of so-called highbrow horror. His other films include Hereditary, Beau is Afraid, and Death of a Unicorn. The film is a co-production between Aster in the United States and Lars Knudsen in Sweden, with Midsommar being initially pitched to Aster as a straightforward slasher film set among Swedish cultists. While elements of the original concept remain in the final product, the finished film focuses on a deteriorating relationship inspired by a difficult breakup experienced by Aster himself. He describes the result as a breakup movie dressed in the clothes of a folk horror film. Hälsingland is a real place, and the Harga are real people, although of course the more cultish and murderous elements were embellished, perhaps leaning into fears our society seems to have around paganism and folk practices, which Aster was inspired by having studied May Day and Midsummer festivals practiced among Swedish, German, and English communities. Group dynamics consist of the individual experiences of each person in the group, but also of a third thing that is co-created, which is summarized by the concept of intersubjectivity. Intersubjectivity means that personal experience emerges, then transforms in relational contexts. Think of it like a Venn diagram. In one circle is your experience. This is all your thoughts, feelings, experiences, and intentions that you carry with you. In the second circle is all the thoughts, feelings, and experiences and intentions of someone else you are interacting with. The overlapping and connected area in between the two circles is what is co-created between you when you interact. You can add as many circles as you want to the diagram, which would create an even more complex overlapping area that is built in these relational contexts. It would be fantastic if everyone could be aware of and track not only their thoughts, feelings, and intentions in a group dynamic, but hold that same awareness that everyone else is bringing their own subjective experience into the group. Because not having this awareness that we are all basically people just crashing into each other, creating little miracles and accidents, is what is called an enactment, which essentially means that we are unconsciously acting out patterns and dynamics from our past without even being aware that we are doing so. Group dynamics and the intersubjective experience can be found really in any kind of group that you may be a part of, with varying degrees of emotional interaction. Workplaces are a great example, and I actually find that this is a group setting where a lot of people unconsciously attempt to get their attachment needs met and are usually left disappointed because our workplaces tend not to love us back in the ways that we truly need. Friend groups create intersubjective experiences. So do romantic relationships, religious groups, recreational or affinity groups, and even groups of strangers who find themselves interacting in a group setting. Psychologist Bruce Tuckman originated the theory of forming, storming, norming, and performing, which describes the typical stages of group development dynamics. In the forming stage, and again this is present with essentially any group, the group is putting their structure together. Group members feel ambiguous about what is going on or how this is all going to go, and conflict is avoided at all costs due to the need to be accepted into the group. Group members tend to look to a group leader for direction and guidance because they have no idea what they're doing or what's going on and need someone to tell them these things. When the friends first join the Harga commune, they're very polite and they're all just like, yeah, sure, let's all take these psychedelics together and no problem, we'll just sleep in one big barn with a screaming baby. Oh, and there's a random bear in the cage, no problem, totally normal, la 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 la. In the storming stage, the process of organizing tasks and processes surface interpersonal conflicts. This is where you really start to see the center of that Venn diagram being colored in with that third thing that is being created. People jockey for position, try to figure out who's in power, who's towards the bottom of the pecking order, and the veneer of politeness and sunshine and rainbows is shattered. Things are starting to happen, and what is really important here is that even though things can start feeling kind of hairy, group members have to listen to each other in order for the group to move forward. Things are moving, progress is being made towards some sort of goal. Hopefully, it's one that everyone is aware of and is mutually working towards. But as I share in an example from my own life a bit later on, sometimes the group has no idea what exactly they're working towards, and it's frustrating. Midsommar demonstrates how the storming phase is one that often repeats through group dynamic cycles, as we see various moments of storming, like when the group of American guests witnesses an Atestupa ceremony, whereby two elders commit suicide by jumping off of a cliff onto the rocks below, and they're like, we are not okay with this, and I am saying this to you now. Mark ruffles some feathers when he pees on their sacred ancestral tree, and then is lured away by a Harga and murdered. Josh also threatens the sanctity of proceeding to the next phase, group norming, when against Harga wishes, he takes photos of their sacred text, so he too is murdered. As you can see in this group, anytime someone threatens the established order of things, this group not only storms, but they kill. The next stage is norming, where group members are creating new ways of doing and being together that become normalized, accepted, and enacted in the group. Processes and procedures of operation are either explicitly or implicitly agreed upon by everyone, and everyone has to participate. It's sort of like, okay, this is how we work together. I have to do it this way. If the group has reached this stage, it means that even though they have faced conflict, they are listening to each other and have moved to a more shared leadership model or group dynamic. Group members learn that they have to trust one another for shared leadership to be effective. It's so much easier for the Harga to norm once they have gotten the pesky outsiders under control, either through murder or intoxication. Danny is encouraged by Pele to embrace the group as her true family, the way that he did after losing his parents. And feeling completely alone and vulnerable, she's like, you know what? Maybe I will embrace this cult. And she joins in on cooking, and she wears ceremonial clothing, and she takes a bunch of drugs and joins their ritual dance. And guess what? She even wins. She is norming within the group. Huzzah! And finally, we reach the performing phase, where the group runs like a well-oiled machine. Roles and procedures are clear, people know what is happening, and there is trust. People feel safe and supported, and the group is resourced with grounded, regulated individuals who are able to oscillate easily from their subjective experience into the intersubjective one that was created within the group. They are able to meet their own needs along to tending with the needs of others in the group. Danny, fully integrated into the group and understanding that this is now where she belongs and how this all works, performs her established role as May Queen of choosing a ritual sacrifice, and she chooses her dumbass boyfriend. Praise the Harga! Of course, certain groups must also adjourn. This might not always necessarily be the case if we're talking about certain interpersonal relationships, like family structures, or if you have a lifelong friendship or marriage, but they do, of course, change over time. But for groups that must reach an inevitable adjournment, group members must manage this transition and any feelings that arise due to the ending. And boy, is change ever hard. Endings are hard, and this can be a challenging group phase to navigate. In Midsommar, Danny doesn't really manage this phase at all, because I think she stays in the cult, right? I mean, that's how I read the ending of this movie. I mean, I don't know how the law works, but I feel like if she returned home, she would probably face some criminal charges, no? And cult deprogramming is no joke, especially because Danny is coming from a place of profound grief and loss. What does she have to return to? She sacrificed her boyfriend to some Swedish pagan gods. Her family is dead. I think adjournment would be too big a blow to her psyche, which is why so many people stay integrated into cult dynamics. This model is not necessarily linear. If, for example, the group is in the norming phase and somebody gets really upset because they feel like they're doing all the work and Sally isn't participating, then do not pass go, do not collect $100, and return to the storming phase. Some groups also never norm. Some groups just be stormin'. Because norming or performing requires trust, and trust is a very fragile thing, my ghouls. When that trust is fractured, broken, or if group members are coming from subjective places of deep trauma and lack of trust, then the group may feel like a very threatening place where they are unable to vibe, aka norm or perform. There are certain accepted axioms about what it means to heal, and I think we can all agree that healing in community and with the support of others tends to be the prescribed method above sitting and stewing in your own feelings alone. I mean, I even talk about this all the time, both on this podcast and in my practice. If sharing your experience in community and being able to share your vulnerability with others and in a group or community setting is accessible to you, I am all for that. More power to you, share away. And as a mental health professional, I deal in nuance. When people have experienced attachment wounding or trauma, meaning that their sense of safety was threatened or betrayed in relationship or community, this can have serious impacts on one's ability to be vulnerable with others. In fact, our vulnerability is an incredibly precious and sacred thing, and sometimes seemingly well-intentioned groups don't necessarily have your best interests in mind. While the collective feeling and grieving depicted in Midsommar is upheld as a beautiful example of shared grief, this is also a cult, people. This place is not safe or chill. People are throwing themselves off of cliffs and setting themselves on fire. People are luring and sacrificing tourists, and people are murdering bears. Again, let's think about what brought Dani to Hälsingland to experience the Midsommar Festival. Her relationship with Christian is hanging on by a thread, and she has no one else to turn to because her entire family just died in a horrible murder-suicide. She is incredibly vulnerable, and sometimes when we are vulnerable, we become very suggestible. Predatory people and groups can definitely take advantage of those experiencing emotional vulnerability, which is exactly what the Harga does. There are many versions of this. I'm thinking about religious trauma perpetuated through churches, church groups, or religious families. Families can betray your trust as well. Romantic partnerships can weaponize vulnerability. And friends can ghost when it gets really bad. Try to imagine this. What would be Dani's capacity to trust another group if she were to leave Hälsingland? Would she just be able to sign up for her local sacred women's womb circle and take part in a yoni steaming? Or would she just be like, hell no, I'm not trusting another group of people telling me to put herbs in my vag? I'm not telling them about my grief. Look what happened last time. This protective part that would emerge inside of Dani serves a purpose that we should not judge too harshly. It would be for her to navigate what that part means, what it's trying to communicate to her, if it holds any value, and what kind of relationship she wants to have with it. If Dani ever left Hälsingland, I would imagine it would take her a very long time to begin reforming the trust she had with others and may have previously felt. You've probably noticed how popular women's circles are today, and it totally makes sense why. In our digital and post-COVID world, people are lonely and looking for connection. Women's circles tend to have a spiritual lean to them, and I think this explains a lot of their appeal, as people search for meaning in increasingly dystopian times. Women's circles are, of course, nothing new, as women have been gathering together to heal and support one another from the beginning of time. But their renewed interest speaks to a desire for women to honor the bonds of womanhood, and there is this understanding that women's circles are supposed to be a safe space for women to share feelings, knowledge, and experiences. But let me tell you, Even though I'm literally a therapist and can logically tell you about the endless books, literature, studies, and psychological theories I have read and actually believe about healing and community, the idea of attending a women's circle fills me with a kind of full-body panic that makes me want to run for the hills. There is a big part of me that listens longingly when other women tell me about their new moon women's circles or craft circles or whatever kind of circles, and I imagine how nice it must feel to gather with a group of women who hold you in love, kindness, and support. I imagine myself joining in and I see myself laughing or maybe crying, and my emotions flow freely without reservation, or the Scorpio strange tangle of feelings I have about public displays of emotions that I often experience. It sort of reminds me of a scene from Little Women and how all the sisters collapse onto a bed together, and I just want to jump in there with them and roll around in a bunch of blankets and sisters like it's the safest place in the world. But at this point in my life, my nervous system does not know the difference between attending a women's circle and being placed inside the disemboweled body of a bear in a Swedish death cult. Let me tell you why. The graduate program I attended for psychotherapy was rigorous and intensive, to say the very least. It was an in-person program aside from that little COVID thing where we had to go online, but it spanned 3 years in class, not including the additional 2 to 3 years you must spend completing all the additional requirements to become an accredited professional. Part of the program was something called group process, which is a recognized psychological training format where students sit in a circle and engage in a group sharing format that focuses on understanding group dynamics and interpersonal interactions while building self-with-other relational skills. Group members are encouraged to share personal feelings and experiences that arise in relation to the group experience. It is facilitated, but it is also unstructured and free-flowing. Ever the overachieving A student, I shared, and I shared some more. I did what was asked of me because I wanted to show my teachers how hard I was willing to work, which meant offering my deepest and most personal traumas up for discussion as part of the curriculum. I submitted all my assignments ahead of time and shared in group first, something that was observed often lovingly by faculty members, and observed sometimes as an annoying brown-nosing behavior by some of my peers. But I was responding to the overwhelming anxiety I was experiencing inside my own body, wanting to get it over as quickly as possible, lest I explode from the pressure and fear of it all, while also wanting to please the faculty members who were themselves working so hard to facilitate this whole thing for us. At the time of my grad school training, my father was dying from brain cancer, and I was right in the middle of it. The horrible, raw confusion, pain, and bewilderment. I shared about what it was like to watch my big, strong, dashing father have everything taken away from him by this disease. And I shared about even deeper, more personal traumas I have endured that I will not share here. Students responded to me as they were told to, authentically, with curiosity, or with whatever else came up for them. Sometimes this was with deep empathy or holding. Sometimes students would try on cruelty and suspicion to see how it felt, and they were rewarded for their bravery and risk-taking in jumping into the fray and being authentic. This was a safe space to express whatever you wanted, so if you were cruel, if you chose not to believe someone when they told you about the deepest hurt or abuse they had ever felt, It was all okay because it was real. We were encouraged to take risks and be bold with our responses instead of just offering cupcakes to each other, which became something we were encouraged to avoid. I'm a private person. I don't trust easily, especially when it comes to my feelings. So for me, the interaction of being an overachiever, eager to prove that I was doing it right, and being told that my success in this program was based on ignoring my deepest instincts about sharing my feelings with relative strangers, things I had literally never told the most trusted people in my life. It was uncomfortable. I often left the group feeling humiliated, overexposed, like a science experiment, and I would often even black out and not remember what happened in those meetings. I could only remember how it made me feel. We constructed false realities and false enemies amongst our peers. One time, I literally couldn't catch my breath and had to ask a group member to press their hand into my chest to help ground me. I think I was having a panic attack. We were trained in the art of nuance and self-disclosure as therapists, which means that you don't share anything personal with your clients unless it is in their best interest. My profession is also one of deep ethical consideration, which has further deepened my discomfort with sharing my feelings for fear that it could compromise the integrity of my credentials or someone's experience of me as a therapist. My friend Shannon Knight of the Tarot Diagnosis podcast, who is also a psychotherapist, talks about this in a piece she wrote called Mothered by the Work, which she shared on her Substack, which I have linked to below. She talks about the difficulty of navigating how to share your own feelings when you're a therapist, and I deeply relate to what she wrote. The problem is, and the one I continue to sit with years later, is that I believe I received the best training available. I wholeheartedly believe that my program graduates the highest quality therapists you can find. I send referrals to colleagues from my school all the time. Group process was one part of the program, and its purpose was left purposely vague so that you could find it for yourself. Generations of graduates from my program have theorized about what the actual point was, and I believe it was twofold. It was training us in emotional regulation and in tracking countertransference. You never know who is going to walk through your door and what they are going to share with you and what it is going to trigger in you as the therapist. You must be mindful not to respond from a place of your own pain, anger, trauma, or offense, and be able to track what is arising in you so that you are not transferring that back to the client, and only self-disclose or share your in-the-moment emotional experience if it is in their best interest. You must be highly skilled at regulating your own emotions so that you may hold the space for your client without dumping all your own stuff onto them. This space is for them, and yes, it's about the relationship and what you create together, but knowing how to not judge, project, or step on someone's toes emotionally is a skill that must be cultivated and practiced. And I guess group process was the best way to do that. I don't blame or hold any ill will towards my program. Quite the contrary. Attending this program was the best and most pivotal decision of my life. I am an excellent and highly trained therapist, and it's largely because of this program. I don't blame anyone for the difficulty I endured in group process. I only wish I had been able to track my overachieving parts a little better and given myself permission to maintain privacy when every cue in my body was telling me to just stop and observe. My overachieving and protective parts entered into a cage match. We all have protective parts parts that say or sometimes scream, like when we're watching a horror movie, "Don't go in there. Stay out of the basement. Don't open that box, Brad Pitt." It's important for us to honor instead of judge them and not try to make them into something they're not. This is what I did. I ignored my own internal compass, and I did myself real harm. While I gained so much in my training, I do feel a sense of loss when I think about my experience in that group. I grieve knowing how to feel anything other than shame when sharing vulnerability with others. I grieve messy anonymity. I don't know if I'll ever attend a women's circle. I have other ways of coping that feel good. I'm not judging or forcing myself. I have my own ways of emotional processing and have a small handful of people that I tell stuff to. I also exercise. A lot. That helps. Towards the end of my program, faculty gave feedback to students while in this group setting. Sitting in that same circle, one of my most favorite faculty members shared a reflection with me that I go back to often, like a warm blanket. He said that the image he has of me is like this witch who lives up on a hill in her haunted castle. She does her witchy things inside her castle, and she loves it up there. And occasionally she'll come down from the hill and share herself as much as she can with the community, and then she'll go back up to her haunted witch castle on the hill. Although I had been feeling so overexposed and ugly in my shame for sharing what felt like way too much, I felt like he still saw me for who I am, that I hadn't betrayed myself, and it put a small piece of me back together. A tarot card I have chosen that I associate with Midsommar is the Three of Pentacles. This card references the intersubjective nature of group dynamics and the third thing that is created when people bring subjective experiences into a shared space. The people in this card are both teachers and students, and perhaps they came into this situation believing they were only one of those things, but quickly learned that they each have something to share and to learn from others. Like the axiom about healing in community and feeling more supported by a community than you would by yourself, the Three of Pentacles portrays this in the pyramid shape that the pentacles are arranged in, which is known to be one of the strongest shapes, capable of enduring a very heavy weight. I think this was the appeal of Hälsingland for Dani. In her grief, she saw an opportunity to lose herself in a group of people who could teach her something about their way of life, about community, and about connecting to something bigger than yourself. But that community and thing that was bigger than herself, it turns out that it was a death cult. A few of the shadow aspects I can see in the Three of Pentacles is the fact that one of the people in the card is portrayed as standing on top of a bench, perhaps indicating that they want to have the upper hand on the others in the group, or that they want to exercise dominance over the others. Additionally, the rose that is found under the pentacles references this idea of spiritual sub rosa, meaning a type of spirituality that is explored secretly or without the knowledge of others. This can sometimes be okay in the sense that we don't need to share the ins and outs of our spirituality with anyone and everyone. But in the case of Midsommar, the Harga clearly have ulterior motives to the Midsommar festival that don't just include picking wildflowers and dancing around a maypole. That's likely what Dani thought she was signing up for, and as a result, her trust in groups has either been completely shattered, or the group influenced her so profoundly, fracturing her sense of self and reality, that she is now one of them. I'm gonna be honest, this was a really hard episode for me to write. If this means anything to you, I'm deeply a Scorpio and do not open up easily. In writing this, I felt the familiar strangling in my chest and full body panic whenever I have tried to talk about my discomfort with groups and what group process was like for me. But I just felt like I had to. I challenged myself to write this, to confront an edge I have recognized in myself. Before I ever dreamed of being a therapist, I dreamed of being a writer. I think I am a writer and also a therapist. And I think the worst fate for a writer is to ask them to not write from their heart. I wrote this not just for myself, but for you too. I wanted to talk about how other people might experience a lack of safety in sharing with others or a betrayal of trust, because I don't want to abide by the therapeutic cliche memorized in stylized Instagram posts and italicized platitudes that we heal in community and we grieve together. Because that's a very nice idea, but I want to acknowledge that it's not so easy for everyone. Mental health therapy and healing are incredibly personal and nuanced subjects, and there is no one-size-fits-all axiom or solution for everyone. Personal experience matters, and understanding people's protective parts and what they are protecting is really important in tending to pain. At My Ghouls is the story of Midsommar, group dynamics, intersubjectivity, and why I'm afraid of women's circles. I guess this goes without saying, but I also just want to ask everyone to please be nice to bears. Mental Health is Horrifying is entirely researched, written, edited, and produced by me, Candace Green, registered and spooky psychotherapist. If you like this podcast, please consider rating and reviewing on your preferred listening platform. It really helps the show to reach all the other spooky ghouls out there, and I will be eternally grateful. And an eternity is a very long time for a vampire, okay? If you live in Ontario and or Toronto and are interested in psychotherapy with me, I offer in-person and virtual sessions for final girls and haunted houses who want to make sense out of the guts of their lives. I specialize in grief and trauma and incorporate both tarot and dream arc into my practice as tools to delve deeper into fields of psychic terrain. I also offer group programs through the Final Girls Club, which you can learn more about on my website. You can follow me on Instagram at Mental Health is Horrifying, and you can also learn more about me and all of my services through my website, manymoonstherapy.com. Or you can also howl at the moon and I will hear your call. Bright blessings.